Welcome, everyone, to another audio book review by Dr. Thor Templar here of IGOS, the Intergalactic Guild of Occult Sciences. And this is an excellent book and an area of study that was very popular at one time and kind of faded away, but isn't completely gone. The name of the book is Biorhythms, A Personal Science by Bernard Gettelsen, which has sold over 1 million copies in its heyday throughout the 70s into the 80s. And this book even goes as far as 1993 with giving you charts to actually plot your biorhythms. Now, your biorhythms are the rhythms of life. We all hear about these things with the energies of astrology, which has been in many circles poo-pooed, while although very accurate in many areas. The tides are rhythms. You have own internal rhythms. You have days where you feel good and bad. So, biorhythms just make a lot of sense. I mean, we all have good days and bad days. There are days we're in the groove. People who play sports or do something, and they just can't seem to lose. They're performing at very high levels. Why? Other days they perform like they can't even see. Or other problems. We've all been through this, where we're just doing something and we are functioning at a very high level. Well, what is happening here? Why is that? And it's something as an occult scientist and occultists in general need to really examine. And I personally will be coming out with a book in the near future that will give approximately anywhere from 5 to 6 different energy rhythms that the occult scientists should know about, because if you're going to do rituals, and it's always difficult to get the kind of results you want to manifest at high levels, and to perform at high levels in life. It doesn't matter how much training you do. I've always watched the Winter Olympics and watched a lot of these athletes, particularly the figure skaters, who do this as a profession. They do it, 8-10 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. They do it as their profession. This is what they do. All they do is practice it. Yet when they get to the Olympics, they're falling, they're hitting. Why is this? Why would you, I can certainly see not doing your best, but of course, here again, you're a professional. Why aren't you doing your best? Well, biorhythms have a lot to do with this. But why are these people falling? They've done spins their entire career in figure skating, and this goes for any events, gymnastics, skiing, whatever it is. And then you see these horrible spills, these horrible miscalculations. Why? Almost 80 to 90% of these people, when actually charted their biorhythms, show that they were in a bad bio time. And there are basically 3 different biorhythms that take care of the main senses, the physical, the intellectual. And as these things combine together and at different phases where they cross and have problems, you can be at a low biorhythm for one of your phases or all 3 of them. So it's the intellectual, the emotional, and the physical. When you combine these energies together, if you are a low period, you are going to perform at a very low level. When you track people almost in any profession, car accidents, bus drivers, cab drivers, company accidents, you find that 80 to 90% of these people had accidents or problems during these low biorhythm times. Now, as I've mentioned, there are 5 to 6 other things that can be taken into consideration for an occult scientist to make sure that when you do something, you perform at your highest possible level. And I will be detailing these in a book and further training in the near future. But to get a good idea of just what biorhythms are about, these 3 main rhythms that function within our realities, and they're very much overlooked, and the Japanese and the Swiss have been using biorhythms for years very successfully in their companies and to lower accident rates and so forth. And I'm not sure what they're doing today, but a good overview of the entire biorhythm reality is covered in this book by Gettelson. Books all cover things a little bit differently, and this was certainly a very useful book when it was last published in 1993, because it gave you some very easy charts to use to figure out your own. Now, all those are now very outdated, but and can't be used unless you're plotting old statistical data. And, for those who want to spend a lot of time looking at events and people, certainly you could use this book to do that pre-1993. But the basic information is there, the statistical data about how it works, the theory behind it, all of that is presented in. It's presented very well, well documented, written well. So this gives you a great beginning study into biorhythms and to get a feel of it. There are many books on it, not too many recently. As I've mentioned, this kind of just disappeared, even though there are biocalculators online, which several of them, which you can chart your biorhythms for free. They actually made machines in the 70s, and these little calculators, biorhythm calculators, which are quite interesting and fun. Unfortunately, they are all worthless because they only work till 1999. But if you want to do historical research, well, these calculators can still be good for you, but certainly not for modern or telling what's happening with you today or anything after 1999. But he goes into many different aspects and talks about the different people involved in it, the research that was done by airlines, companies, the military, etc. So this is a fantastic introduction to what biorhythms are in a well-done, well-documented way. And what's very interesting is, as with lots of books, they all mention little things, but he talks about the health aspects of it and also people involved in the healthcare industry. A surgeon wrote to him, or he communicated with, stating that ever since he'd been following his biorhythms, that he only did surgery on his up days. And as such, since he's been doing that, he's never had a single problematic surgery case. Well, that's pretty amazing, people. Before that, his patients had problems, a certain percentage of them. Their healing was worse. And in general, they had problems, a certain percentage of them. Ever since he'd been using biorhythms, he's had basically a perfect operating record. Quite amazing. So these type of things should be followed and studied even further to find out, if you're having a good day and we all talk about it. That guy's on. That guy's got a winning streak if it's gambling. Well, why does he have a winning streak? There's really no reason for it, especially if you talk about professionals. Professional gamblers are using certain techniques and learning. Well, why do they win one day and not the next? Why are there some people that for a certain period of time seem to not be able to lose? What about people that play games? We've talked about all the time. He's in the groove. He's on. And we've all went through this where we played a particular sport or done something where we just can't seem to lose. And these energies seem to grow with you as the other aspects kick in as you start to do well and get further psyched into it. There is something to this. We are all controlled by these rhythms. And, this may be the ultimate control and the ultimate factor in our lives that is now completely and totally thrown to the side by those oppressor, evil, satanic types who have labeled anything alternative to be demonic when they're the demons. These are all provided by, if you believe in some sort of God form, intrinsically within our reality. So why is it? Why do some basketball players are on and score huge amounts of points one game and the next game they don't? They may even hurt themselves, and this is another thing that they found out, that of course, if you're at a very low aspect and you're going to do something hazardous, it's best not to do it. And this includes sports as well. If you hurt yourself seriously in doing some sort of sport, it means you could be out for the entire season, which means your team wouldn't have that help. How many times have you heard that about professional athletes? Well, if they followed these people's biorhythms, they would avoid this. The evidence is overwhelming. Like everything in life, it's not 100%, and there's some people that perform well even when their biorhythms are bad. But, this has a lot of reasons for this, but it's like everything. As I mentioned, nothing's 100%. But if you can get to an 80 to 90% additional favorable factor for you, if you're doing rituals, psychic work, you're trying to manifest something, you're trying to tune radionic machines, well, do it at a high time. Instead of doing it every day or even frequently, do it when you can get the best results. And if you do that, you will have to do things much less. This, again, is a big factor. We all have limited time. If we can do things at high success rates of time where we're really, quote, we're in the groove, well, we're going to get fantastic results when we could be working our heads off, doing ritual after ritual, psychic empowerment after psychic empowerment during low periods and get little to no results, maybe even bad information. So this is a very exciting field, and there still is people active in it. You can have people make out your chart for you for a fee, inexpensively. As I mentioned, there are, quote, biorhythm calculators. Last time I checked, there are 6 online for free. All you do is punch in your birth date, and you get a chart of your good days and bad days. And as I said, every book gives you a little bit of insights. And one exciting thing about this book is that, while it doesn't talk about it much, I talked about health somewhat, but health is very important. If you can get into your biorhythms, this could potentially be the secret to living very long and healthful life. It appears from the research that cancer is not in a biorhythm. It's out of your biorhythm. Well, that makes sense. And this is why it is functioning in your body, because your body is not kicking it out or healing itself because it's not part of your natural biorhythms. Well, I find that very fascinating. So fascinating so that if we worked on biorhythms and incorporated everything that was in our body and was able to push it into our biorhythms, it means that there's a potential that it could actually take those cancer cells, put them in biorhythm, and actually destroy them and cure yourself. And it doesn't have to be cancer, it could be anything. As usual, since this isn't a pill you take, and because this would be something that would be inexpensive, guess what? You ain't gonna hear about it because they can't put a meter on it to charge you. Simple things like this and many other health cures that dealt with devices that can be just plugged in or assist you have always been suppressed because there's no meter on it. There's no get this pill month after month. And the price of these bogus prescriptions are going through the roof, tripled and quadrupled within the last 5 to 10 years, and some medications costing tens of thousands of dollars with dubious results. Here's another way. Balance your biorhythms. Get in rhythm with your rhythms. And there seems to be an awful lot on these. I mean, there is the talk of the circadian rhythms, the body rhythms that run the human body, and this is part of it, I guess. That's another area of study, but the entire biorhythms of this, which was discovered in the early 1900s, certainly holds an awful lot of promise. And when research has been done in this area, almost entirely comes out with an extremely positive effect in terms of, if your biorhythms are low in particular areas, you function poorly, you get into bad habits, you make lots of mistakes. Well, if you're an airline pilot, well, you shouldn't be flying. If you're a surgeon, you shouldn't be operating. These are the type of things that are a minor inconvenience that once they were done in certain businesses and organizations have proved to have fantastic results. This is particularly, as I've mentioned, large in Japan and in Switzerland, of all places. So this is a great starting guide, so I highly recommend it. It's one of these you can get old used paperbacks. You can get these inexpensively. Look in the usual places for that. eBay, abe.com is another place to find inexpensive books, and you can probably get a book like this for $3 or $4, and usually with shipping thrown in. If you want to learn about biorhythms, this is a great book to start in. It goes into a lot of different areas, covers some unusual information, and of course it breaks down on how to do the biorhythms if you want to. There are mathematics involved. It's relatively easy if you're a person who is not intimidated by that. So he does tell you how to do it and how to figure it out, which is relatively simple. If you're a person that goes into that. I prefer not to touch that with a 10-foot pole, but that's me. But you can use a calculator, figure out by punching in some relatively simple equations and figure out your own biorhythms for that time. But, it's always nice to go to an official calculator, which will do it for you for free quickly online, or have a chart made up to you, which they'll explain to you how to read it better as well. But the book tells you all that as well. Tells you how to read it, tells you what's going on, and will assist you on every phase of it. An excellent book, an excellent introductory book into the subject matter. Lots of excellent information, and I highly recommend it. Watch for my upcoming book on the occult science rhythms of life, which should be coming out in the next 6 months to a year.